landscape designer, artist, or architect. I've always known that I wanted to do something with art and design. Through my capstone project this year, I got to research what that might be, what my future might hold. I had previously heard of industrial design, but Capstone provided me an outlet to examine the workforce further, specifically from a woman's perspective. Most people don't actually know what industrial design is. Industrial design, or ID, is the development of concepts, ideas, designs for products, which can range from anything like car accessories to furniture to appliances or children's toys. Industrial design requires imagination, good communication, and persistence. I visited 5 colleges this year that have ID programs, and in each class I peered into, I found it lacking in female students. When I researched for my capstone on prominent women in the ID field, I found about 8, and 4 of them are deceased. But there was an abundance of men. So I asked myself, why am I seeing such a lack of female industrial designers? Like a normal high school student, I procrastinated homework to research why the design industry lacks a female presence. And what I found was, I want to say it was shocking, but it wasn't, as I had previous knowledge of the design industry's gender inequality. So here are the stats that I found. It's 2019, and yet women hold only 11% of executive leadership positions in design. In ID, the male to female ratio is 9 to 1. I wondered, how did all these women, all 11% of them, handle being a minority in their workforce? The solution to success I saw that was easy was to become a cutthroat workaholic, but clearly that was an unfavorable option. I set out to explore how a woman can find contentment and balance in her workforce while also breaking her glass ceiling. In pursuing the answer to my question, I learned that work requires sacrifices, sometimes substantial ones. Being a designer requires sacrifices of time, relationships, energy, interests. When I visited colleges in New York, I got the opportunity to meet with Abby Learheimer, who at the time was a menswear designer at Champion Sportswear, which I thought was pretty cool. What she had to say really impacted me. She spoke about how she often worked 50 to 60 hours a week and was in the office from 8 a.m. to 11 to 12 at night. I found this insane. I wondered, how did she keep up with her relationships? How did she have hobbies? How did she do anything other than work? But then I realized I had been doing exactly the same thing. I got up, sometimes at 5:30 to do extra work. I went to school. I learned all day. I went to my job after school and worked. I came home and I did homework until 11 or 12 at night. I had been sacrificing so much of my time and my health for good grades and achievement, and I didn't even realize it. I wondered if I could see myself sustaining this type of lifestyle for the rest of my life. I mean, I enjoy work, but not that much. And I also wondered, were all design jobs like this? After meeting Abby, I decided I would ask all the women that I met with how they balanced contentment and work. In a personal attempt to push against workaholism, I tried to practice contentment and balance this year, 2 virtues that would greatly challenge me. First semester, I'll be real, I kind of forgot that I had chosen to practice contentment. So I made 0 progress. But second semester was exponentially better in my cultivation. In January, I met with Nicole Catapano, who is a senior graphic design specialist at Night Eyes. She's incredible. She has worked with companies like Sphero, Disney, Budweiser, Pixar, Boeing, and the United States Air Force. Insane. She has 11 years of experience, so naturally I was really excited to talk to her. She in particular had really good thoughts on how to practice contentment and balance. When I asked her how she did so, specifically while having a job that's highly demanding, she remarked, "In my personal life, I try to take a lot of time, as cliche as it sounds, for self-care. Meditating, reading, taking time away from my phone, off my computer, going out in nature. taking time to focus inward on myself, and taking a break from all the chaos of daily life. Self-care is a priority to me. It's something I've been focusing on, and it makes me feel better, which then allows me to do better work, be a better friend, and be better in all aspects of my life. Nicole's focus on contentment pushed me to think about what I had been doing to be content. I had work to do. First semester was really, really difficult. I was thrown into senior year and I wasn't prepared. I wasn't in the headspace where I was ready for it. I expected too much from myself, more than anything that was humanly possible. And while my expectations pushed me to work really, really hard, I fell into an intense pattern of workaholism. I made 14 art projects in one semester. I tried my best to keep up with normal schoolwork. I tried to be a good friend, and I attempted to pursue Capstone with a full heart. Last semester, I was miserable. I chose productivity and good grades over my mental health and taking care of me. But the shortcomings of last semester enabled me to acknowledge that contentment is critical. It's so important. Not just in being a person or a designer, but just really for functioning. I did several intentional things to foster balance and contentment this semester specifically. I emphasized self-care. I made more time for myself. I focused more on my personal hygiene, mental and physical. So for instance, I attempted to do things more often like washing my face every day or meditating before I went to bed. Just really checking in with myself more often. And I also didn't allow myself to feel guilty for taking time to do these things. I practiced sitting with my feelings, accepting that I don't have to be constantly productive. I don't. Taking a break is a good thing. I practiced grounding myself. I tried to be more grateful more frequently. Even within the last month, the last week, I've become more additionally aware of the things that I'm grateful for. I currently work at Creekside Gardens, and it's a local flower and nursery shop. So while I'm there, occasionally I'll get to plant seeds and seedlings. And each time I get to do so, I sit there and I think about how rad it is that I literally get paid to play in the dirt. I get to plant, these seeds, and I get paid to do that. How cool is that? I'm so grateful for that. In practicing contentment, I'm also practicing gratitude. I've been making a lot of progress. I chose to lower my expectations for myself and put weight on intentional self-care. I'm really proud of the work that I've done. Contentment is critical. It impacts relationships, communication, and work. By practicing self-care, I can be a better person and designer. Not just for me, but also for all of you, for the people around me. Last fall, I toured Metropolitan State University of Denver's Industrial Design program. And while I was there, I peered into a classroom, and there was one girl in there, so I went up to her and I introduced herself, and she told me her name was Monica, and we started talking about, what the ID program was like, and, what the design industry's gender disparity was like for real. She talked a lot about her personal experience with being in a male-dominated work environment, and one thing that Monica said really, really resonated with me. She expressed, yeah, it's weird. There are people who think that you're not competent, even in subtle ways. They'll come up to you and they'll try to teach you how to use a piece of equipment that you've been using for 5 years, and you're like, I've done this already. You don't need to teach me this. It cuts your confidence when people are constantly assuming that you don't know the things you know. Her insight was something that I felt was accurate, not just for me, but also for being an industrial designer as a woman in general. I learned a great deal of things this year. I learned how to make my designs a reality, how to manage my time effectively, and how to take advantage of opportunities that came my way. I also learned how to use a table saw, which I was really excited about, and how to actively problem solve when in the midst of a project. I reaffirmed my love of working with my hands, whether in the garden or in the wood shop. I love getting my hands in the dirt and working with plants. I love growing produce and creating something really tactile. I love creating art that represents a concept that I've been obsessing over. I love that. In my love of creation, I'm often reminded of a poem which was read in junior seminar last year that reflects not only the way that I aim to create, but really the way I aim to live my life. In Wendell Berry's poem, Manifesto, the Mad Farmer Liberation Front, he writes, "Love the quick profit, the annual raise, vacation with pay. Want more of everything ready-made. Be afraid to know your neighbors and to die. And you will have a window in your head. Not even your future will be a mystery anymore. Your mind will be punched in a card and shut away in a little drawer. When they want you to buy something, they will call you. When they want you to die for profit, they will let you know. So, friends, every day do something that won't compute. Love the Lord, love the world. Work for nothing. Take all that you have and be poor. Love someone who does not deserve it. Denounce the government and embrace the flag. Hope to live in that free republic for which it stands. Give your approval to all you cannot understand. Praise ignorance. For what man has not encountered, he is not destroyed. Ask the questions that have no answers. Invest in the millennium. Plant sequoias. Say that your main crop is the forest that you did not plant, that you will not live to harvest. Say the leaves are harvested when they have rotted into the mold. Call that prophet. Prophecy such returns. Expect the end of the world. Laugh. Laughter is immeasurable. Be joyful though you have considered all the facts. Practice resurrection." Berry's poem depicts how I aim to reflect God's nature, as he is the great creator and I his creation. This year, I learned that I could give more than 100% if I set my mind to it. I made an entire art portfolio in 6 months, and I was accepted to Rhode Island School of Design, every art kid's dream school. It's often called the Harvard of art schools. But more importantly, I learned about the empowerment of other women. In exploring contentment, I found gratitude is a huge part of my practice. I realized I should be more grateful for the women around me, more frequently, and more actively. So, how do we actually empower the women in our lives? Here are a couple of ways that I've been trying to do so more often. Validate women's self-expression. When you see a woman sharing her story, her experience, or just being vulnerable, acknowledge that she's being really brave and that you are thankful for hearing her story. Compliment her mind and her soul, not just her body or her appearance. Women are constantly told about their appearances, whether they look tired, they look sad, they look good, they look bad. So compliment her kindness, her resilience, her work ethic, or some other attribute that she's displaying. Pass the spotlight. Sometimes empowerment means that you step back and let someone else take the moment of glory. Thank women more frequently. Various studies have shown that women do a whole lot of organizational and emotional work that often goes unpaid and unnoticed. So acknowledge women's efforts. Make them feel valued. Recognizing other women for their contributions is so important. Nicole Catapano discussed what fosters success as a female designer, telling me, "I would say that make sure going into anything you have a positive attitude. There's always lessons to be learned, even if you're struggling or if something is not going like you thought. There's always things you can take away from it to better yourself. Ask what else you can do." People really respond to that, and they like that you're thinking of things or trying to help others with their work. Be positive, be useful, and try to keep the creative energy alive outside of work. Because of what Nicole said, I tried to keep up with my hobbies, specifically this semester. I went on walks with my mom more frequently than I would. I read books that I wouldn't normally, and I tried to ride my bike more often. I attempted to continue expanding my knowledge and creativity. As most people who know me understand, I'm really, really passionate about being sustainable and reducing human impact on the earth. And I started using my extra time to think more frequently. So, what does this all come to? Being a woman in design requires sacrifice, work, commitment. It requires a genuine practice of self-care, contentment, gratitude, and balance. And it also pairs with the empowerment of other women. It necessitates a diversity of hobbies. It means growing in virtue, rejecting stereotypes, and rejecting the romanticizing of workaholism. I think that these last 9 months have taught me a lot about myself, the way I work, and about living as a healthy person. I'm looking forward to what the future as an industrial designer has for me, and I feel equipped to handle whatever curveball inevitably comes my way, as you all know, I'm sure. I'm moving forward, recognizing that I'll be in the midst of minority in the 10% of women in industrial design, but nevertheless, pursuing my work with a full heart, trying to do something that won't compute.